The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. I'm truly honored to have the guest with me tonight. Music legend Rodney Dillard and his band, the Dillards, were influential to several iconic musicians throughout the decades, and they were regulars on the Andy Griffith Show. The Dillards are also considered to be pioneers of the country rock scene and also were one of the first bluegrass bands to electrify their instruments. Please welcome two-time Grammy nominee and member of the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame, Mr. Rodney Dillard and his wife, Beverly Cotton Dillard. Welcome to both of you.
Hi, young man. I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Well, we're glad you're still here. Trust me. First of all, thank you. It's an honor to have you both on. And I know I've seen both of you perform. I know Beverly, just amazing banjo player, and just performers. I heard you saying amazing. And Rodney, I just want to start with you. First of all, I appreciate you being on, but doing my research, I know you from the Andy Griffith Show, but coming from the town of Salem, Missouri, in 1962, you picked up with your band and moved over to Los Angeles. I know you did some recording in Missouri, but you moved over to Los Angeles. That must have been a whirlwind for you, because within a short time, you were signed by a major label, number one, and by William Morris Agency, which is amazing in itself as well. But you were shortly cast into the Andy Griffith Show. I mean, what a whirlwind for you. How did that even begin like that? Because moving out to LA is big enough in itself, but to have that success right away, how was that for you and the band?
Well, you know more than I do. Well, I must tell you, I grew up in Salem. Well, actually, it's a little town called Darien, which had a post office and a little grocery store that sold bologna and kept it in an ice cooler.
Oh, wow.
and grew up, at that time, there was no electricity. The REA hadn't come through, and we were living off the well. And, so I grew up that way, which if I look back, I'm very grateful for that. But anyway, so I grew up on that farm and went to school, went to a one-room schoolhouse for a while before they consolidated schools. Then my dad was an old-time fiddle player. He played that old kind of, I guess what you would call Tommy Gerald style.
Yeah.
But I think he wanted a backup band. So he bought my brother a banjo, and he bought me an old silver tone guitar. So we started playing his music with him all the time. And from there, Doug and I got very interested in the bluegrass side of things. We'd listen to the Grand Ole Opry, Lightning and Static on the radio, and hear Flat and Scruggs and Bill Monroe. And then later on, jumped up to the time when I left college. For some reason, I got some sort of, what would you call it?
A scholarship.
Well, not where I went, but so I chose SIU, Southern Illinois University. And I went 1 year, 2 weeks before finals. I said, this isn't for me. I don't feel right here. This is not me. I can't do this. I want to play music, because we had started to play around in different places, and that's where we met John Hartford, and we got together, formed a little band, and Doug and I were playing around different places. We made our first record in Illinois. I think I was 16 years old, and got excited about that. And then one day I called Douglas, my brother, and I said, Doug, let's go do something. I feel this urge to do something. Well, in the meantime, we had befriended Mick James, who was a DJ in Salem, Missouri. I think it ran on 2 pinlight batteries. And we've been him, and over the time, we became friends. And he ended up, it's a long story, I'll make it short, but he traded me a dog, and I traded him banjo lessons.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know who got the best of the deal, because he never played banjo very well, and my dog tried to eat my horse.
Oh, no.
I think we both lost on that trade, but nevertheless, we became friends over the time, and started being there, because he was a disc jockey, and on Saturday we'd go in and play on the radio with Hal King, who's just an old-time fiddle player. It's that old,
sure,
that old feel, howdy, and a couple of duties too. And, so we did that, and then when I decided we needed to do something, Doug and I'm jumping again. Dean Webb. We met Dean Webb through a friend of ours who's on a television show in Jefferson City, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
He started the whole lake show thing, Branson and all of that. He was the beginning of that, having a lake show, we called it.
Okay.
With the theater, comedy and the Black Daffodils and all that stuff, you know. And we met Dean through someone who was on that show, Dale Sled. And we got together with Dean, just started picking together. And someone in St. Louis saw us picking somewhere and invited us in to record at his place. So we went in and cut this, I guess you would call it an album at the time, several cuts. And we took it down one weekend to Mitch, who's still on the radio there, played it for him. And I said, we're thinking about just going kids, right? We're just going to get the car and drive to California.
Yeah.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So he said, wait, I'm going to go with you. And he said, just give me time. Well, his sister worked for a production company in Los Angeles, David Wolper Production. I don't know if anybody. And, you know, they was a big dog back then. So his sister, he called his sister, and his sister found us an agent or manager, I would say.
Sure.
Which later proved out to be not the best thing that happened to us, which young folks who are watching this, listening to this should take warning. Take heed of what I'm telling you.
Absolutely, of course.
So we piled in a 55 Cadillac, a one-wheel trailer, and a Thanksgiving turkey, which Mother had made for us because it was just a day before Thanksgiving. We took off for California, and we had about $65 between the four of us.
Oh my gosh, it's one of those success stories that little bit of money in your pocket and a dream, right?
Well, we got as far as Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
And $60. We weren't used to large sums of money like that. We ran out for it in about a couple of weeks.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, we worked odd jobs around. We were starving. We were fighting over crackers, hot ketchup, and water for soup. Crazy. But we ended up getting a gig in a place called the Budai, a folk club. That was when the folks in Oklahoma, where there was a circuit where everybody worked.
The 60s, yeah.
Yeah, the mothers, everybody just worked extra. So we got a job there. We worked it, got enough money to head for California. It's a place I like to be. And
right.
So we headed out there, got out there, and we checked into the Melrose Motel, which rented by the hour.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just not the best place to be.
Right, yeah.
We were desperate. And then we went into a club down the street. That's why we got the folks. And it was called the Ash Grove.
The Edge Grove?
Ash Grove.
Oh, okay.
It's called the Ash Grove.
Okay.
And the fellow read Ed Pearl. And it was the petri dish of the intellectual community in the folk days.
Okay.
I know this because the minute we walked in the door, somebody come up to me and said, "What do you think of the existentialist dilemma?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm a great Presbyterian."
Wow.
And he walked away. It happened. So anyway, we got there. We just pulled out our instruments in the hall there in the lobby and started playing. And Ed said, "You can't do that here." He said, "Do it on stage."
Wow.
He did for us. We did it. It so happened that a fellow by the name of Jim Dixon, who had a lot to do with the Byrds, he produced the Byrds.
Yeah.
If you old enough to remember the Byrds.
I sure am.
And he had other people he had produced over the years, and he had something to do with putting the Eagles together later. But
wow.
took us to Jack Holzman, who owned Elektra Records. Jack
wow.
And make a short story here. We signed with Jack to do an album. The agency that happened to be there that night was William Morris.
Wow. It's huge. Yeah.
It's like being discovered in the drugstore.
Yeah. Well, it's just like a series of events that just happened so quickly for you.
Yes, and it was ordained. It was God's plan.
Yeah.
If I'm to speak that way.
Absolutely.
And so they put a blurb in Variety magazine that said, Elektra signed these guys from the Ozarks who play this funny kind of music. And Andy was sitting there reading a script called The Darlings Are Coming. And he said, well, call those boys up and let's, I think you and Andy. But we went over to Desi Lee Studios. Here we were, fresh out of the Ozarks.
Right.
Walked into it's now Gulf Western, but at the time it was Desi Lee Studios.
Yep, Desi Lou, yeah.
All the biggies there had their shows. They're all back there.
Yep.
Van Dyke, all those people.
Well, I think wasn't like, I don't say Bonanza, but like Wagon Train and all those movies, those Western movies. Didn't they there was a ranch, right, at that time?
No, this was Desi Lee Studios. The ranch came later.
Okay.
The Wind was filmed there. Yeah, Gone with the Wind. You saw part of Burning of Atlanta, didn't you?
Not at the studio. That was on the as you say, not the set, backlot.
The backlot.
Backlot. Okay, yeah, sure.
And that's where Mayberry was, just up the block from Gone with the Wind, the Burning of Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
I thought so when I just stumbled on it one day after I was just wandering around.
Wow, how cool is that?
So anyway, they were shooting an episode, and with Don Knotts, and Bob Sweeney was the director at the time. Andy, they came up and put a chair in front of us, just a couple of folding chairs, no microphone, nothing. Said, "Okay, show us what you got." So we started the number, and Andy slapped his knees and said, "That's it." And I turned to my brother Douglas. I said, "Doug, you're taking us out, and you got to leave me before you go, and you got the job."
Wow, just like that.
Just like that.
You can poke a possum with a 10-foot pole, smoke that groundhog out of his hole. When no one's looking, you can pee in the creek, but never hit your grandma with a great big stick. Granny's precious, she can be mean like a cat's tail caught in a sewing machine. Got a temper, kick you out the door. If you make Granny mad, you won't live her anymore. Don't make Granny mad. Stayed at Granny's back in Tennessee. Dear old lady, she tends to be. Buford slingshot whacked her in the face. They say he's buried somewhere on the plain. Don't whack Granny's face. You can poke a possum with a 10-foot pole, smoke that groundhog out of his hole. When no one's looking, you can pee in the creek, but never hit your grandma with a great big stick. Grandma's wrinkled, hair is snowy white, gentle eyes a twinkle when they catch the light. Nasty neighbor pulled her silver hair, spend a lot of time in intensive care. Don't pull Granny's hair. You can poke a possum with a 10-foot pole, smoke that groundhog out of his hole. When no one's looking, you can pee in the creek, but never hit your grandma with a great big stick.
And the amazing thing about it is we were supposed to do one show.
Yeah.
Right? But they got so many cards and letters on it, that we ended up doing as many as we could since our career kind of took off.
Now, what was the first one, Dooley? What was the first episode that you did? What song did you play?
Let me take that. We did Salty Dog, written by Zeke and Sonny Morris. That Charlene sang that in the jail.
I remember that one.
I think Dooley was one. I think Dooley was the one in the hotel room. Yeah.
Well, I remember when you sang, when I saw that, I mean, I've had Dooley in my head for ever since I saw that episode. I sang it in my head. This is an amazing song. It's one of those songs that stays with me. So all those episodes that you did were just amazing. And then the gal, the actress that did some singing as well. I remember her, and then the gentleman who was playing the
Jug.
The Jug,
Denver?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Denver Pyle, right?
Jesse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He
was.
He directed some television shows too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I was going to tell you, and we talked about this before we started recording, but I noticed that Andy, when you were performing, and I don't know, obviously he's an actor, but he seemed to really enjoy those scenes, like truly enjoy it, almost like he wasn't acting. And when he was playing guitar, it almost seems like he was picking it like a banjo. And that's one of the things that I noticed when he plays guitar. Now, am I wrong in that? Is he picking it like a banjo, the guitar?
No, you're amazingly right.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that to me before.
Yeah, I noticed that right away. I'm like, he's picking that like he's a banjo.
Well, he kind of picked with his thumb and frailed with his fingers.
Exactly.
Like this.
Exactly.
Like,
Was he really playing the guitar during those scenes?
He had that beautiful old D18 Martin that he used in a movie called Face in the Crowd.
Yeah.
That's way before anybody's time, but it was painted black.
Okay.
This beautiful Martin.
Yeah.
So he had a finish taken off, and it was that beautiful old D18 Martin that he played. I got to play it once on the show.
Oh, okay.
I did ask him. I said, "Can I have this guitar when you die?" After a while on that show, there was no tension on that show.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, it looks like they had like a real camaraderie, and I was always a Don Knotts fan, and one of my prized possessions is an autograph that I got of Don Knotts. I have it framed, and I absolutely love it. And I noticed during Dooley that he was rocking back and forth in his chair, and he seemed to really be enjoying it as well. Like I said, it didn't seem like they were acting. They really seemed like they really enjoyed those scenes with you all.
We had a lot, because we would pick, you have to set up the camera, because they shot it like a movie, one camera
shots. Sure.
Yeah. And that was before Lear came along and did the 3-camera on.
Sure.
But Don was a very quiet. After he left the show, he had a CBS variety show.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, we did 2 in the show.
Oh, okay.
And I did a bit with him, a harmonica bit with him.
Yeah, just Rodney and Don.
Showed me a video of it. I'm so proud of that. But Don played the ukulele.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Wow.
Well, there's a funny story about that. I'll just tell this because Andy and Don were always, playing jokes on each other. Don had bought this mandolin at a yard sale, I think, and he brought it in as one of those old tater, what they call the round back ones.
Sure.
He said, "I think I got something here." And he said, "Look at that." Oh, well, I said, "Let me have it. I got a guy even afraid that for you." Don's great. So Andy took it home, brought it back a week later, and he had taken and put dirt in it in a potted plant.
Sure. Oh, wow. Oh, no. Oh, wow. That's a great story.
Oh, yeah. What people saw on that show, it actually came through at that time, the film, and it actually came through the film. It was funny. We spent, I'll tell this story. The snoring scene, did you ever remember that one? And when we were all up at the cabin and Don and Andy were staying there because Ernest T was giving them a hard time.
I don't recall that one, that episode.
They stayed all night, slept in chairs by the bed, and we slept on the bed. And there was a snoring scene.
Okay.
We all settled in, and we started snoring. The Darlings.
Yeah.
And it became a contest with the Darlings who could out-snore the other one.
The loudest one.
What happened was Don and Andy would start to break up. They started laughing. We had to shoot again. We started together, started snoring. It was a symptom.
So you had to cut it and redo it. Oh boy.
We did. I don't know how many takes we did.
Oh boy.
The assistant inspector said, "Okay, we're on the clock here. This is costing money.
Yeah, we're killing film here." Yeah.
You're professionals. Let's do this. We talked to Andy, and so it started. He said, "Okay, everybody on the bell, roll tape, action." And when he said that, we started snoring, and he broke out laughing. And then he said, "Okay, let's break for lunch."
Oh no! Oh boy!
I stole Briscoe's chicken, took his mule to plow. Always meant to give him back, going on 2 years now. If the boys come to look for him, I'll just have to say that darn mule followed me home and ate up all my hay. Out in the ditch, rolling in the mud, cussing and fighting, saying things I never should, with an elbow in the teeth and my 2 years bitten free. I'm disgusted with myself, dirty me, dirty me.
Yeah, those scenes like that people need to know about, because there was more than just actors acting to that. There was the subtlety of a man raising a single parent being a single parent raising a boy.
Sure.
And the value system of that show, that's like never been off the air.
Yeah, it's amazing. I still watch it. Like I said, still watch it to this day. And, one of the things I don't think, obviously, the younger people out there, the millennials and Gen Zs and all that, they don't realize that. I mean, they grew up with social media. They grew up with cell phones. They grew up with technology. And even when I was a kid, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have cell phones, technology, anything. We had rotary phones with wires and phone, to talk to my girlfriend. I had to walk out to the garage with this long cord. Otherwise I'd have no privacy. But kids today, so the evolution of how social media has really changed, but all the streaming platforms and all the TV, networks that show these old shows, thank God for them, because we're able to enjoy, and the younger people are able to enjoy shows that they would have never even known about. So it's keeping that legacy alive. And, I know a lot of younger folks. In fact, my stepdaughter she's an old soul. She loves watching these old TV shows on MeTV and some of these streaming services. So for you all, I would imagine that this is something that's amazing for you, because they can still enjoy these shows that you've been on, and your music on all the music channels and so forth, and YouTube, and you can basically Google anything today and learn about anybody. So what are your thoughts on the evolution like that of the business?
Now they make that, they use Mayberry saying, well, this ain't Mayberry on the cop show, or
yeah. That's right.
All over TV. It's
it's the strange thing about this. We've gone to the technology, which is that where people don't communicate anymore, eyeball to eyeball. There's not that synergy anymore.
Everybody's texting each other.
It's like your conscience. It's atrophied because you're not accountable for what you say to people.
Right. Exactly.
Here's the strange thing to me about all of this. Dillards had a very schizophrenic career. We were the Darlings on the Andy Griffith Show.
Yep.
And we were the Dillards out there doing all these things. We did 32 college concerts in 30 days.
Wow.
We were getting it. We were doing all the rock shows. Back we did Dick Clark.
American Bandstand.
Two or three times.
Well, that's here in Philadelphia, right? I live right outside of Philly. Didn't they used to film it here?
Yeah, but ABC, and he started doing it in L.A. ABC.
Oh, okay. Got it.
That's when we did it.
And they opened for Elton John on his first American tour.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to get into that, because we talked about who you've influenced over the years, and Elton John, who you toured with, you opened for, and Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Linda Ronstadt, you name it. It's a who's who of who you've influenced. Steve Martin, we talked about John McEwen with Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and he's had an amazing career. But you've influenced folks like that, and like I said, Steve Martin, I think, bought a banjo because he saw the Dillards. And so, just amazing the people you've influenced, and that's got to be gratifying for you. But did you know at the time that this was going to turn into that influence like that?
The last 2 years, I guess.
Rodney's never known who he is. Our friends all say that, Rodney, you don't get what you've done. I think it's modesty as well, right? Being modest and humble. Yeah. He's the guy who takes out the trash,
Yeah, it's a normal guy, right? Well, but
everybody has to clean out the trash and clean up dog poop.
Yeah. But we interview a lot of people, a lot of celebrities on this show, and I think that it's refreshing to see folks that live a normal life, but they do their art at the same time, and I think there's this facade. I think people think that's if you're a celebrity or you're somebody who's done something big, that you live in this bubble somewhere and you're unreachable, or you're not a human being. And meanwhile, everybody, I've interviewed celebrities that had day jobs, and they have to, have side gigs because if they don't work, they're unemployed. If they're an entertainer and they're not working a job, they're unemployed. So I think there's this facade out there that people realize or don't realize that people are human beings, no matter what they do it's just a career. That's what you do for a living. I wanted to say, because you've been married for 43 years to Rodney, and I know you perform with them on stage right now as well. And, what is it like for you, to be with Rodney and be in this entertainment business and to get out on stage with Rodney and see all these people that knew him way back when as well from the Andy Griffith Show. And now you're part of this stage act. And I mean, it's gotta be for you. It's just gotta be really an amazing thing for you as well to be part of this.
It really is. I mean, I was doing a solo act when we met in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, at an international music festival.
Wow, Edmonton, okay.
Traditional American music, North Carolina, banjo, stories, songs, and that's when we met. So I went from doing that totally acoustic solo to playing with the Dillards when they were using drums and electric instruments.
Wow.
And I had to learn to play by looking at my hands because I never heard anything for years.
Oh, really?
Because of all electric instruments. And here I am with a little open back banjo.
Yeah.
But it has been something because I grew up, in a little town in North Carolina. I thought that I lived in Mayberry when I was little. I thought my daddy was Andy Griffith because he favored him.
Sure.
And he was kind of law in our town. Took care of the widows, took care of everybody.
Sure.
So I had that kind of persona. And then I end up in my family meeting him. And like you say, all the people that I knew, like I worked for the North Carolina Arts Council. I never met Andy, but he introduced me on film for the Arts Council.
Right.
And it was really, and the kids would chase me leaving in the car from the school. She knows Andy Griffith. Well, I didn't, but now I do.
Yeah.
So that was wild. And I have to, I was a child psychologist and I quit very quickly and started going on the road with a flogging team, the Greengrass Floggers.
Really?
And then I started playing and singing and dancing. And my dad was not happy after putting me through 8 years of college.
Oh, well, okay.
And a master's degree,
Yeah.
He was like, okay, you're out of the will. This is something you do for fun. My granddaddy played fiddle. You don't make a living. But when I married a darling and I got hee-haw.
Yeah, there you go.
Those were his two favorite shows.
I was going to say that changed his mind pretty quick.
Changed everything.
Yeah.
That was where he lived, growing up almost rural North Carolina in a town of 200.
Brought home my pay yesterday. When I took off my shoes, I heard mama say, don't let the women take your money. They call you sweetheart, they call you honey. Keep your money in your shoes and it won't get wet. They ain't gonna take it, you can bet, 'cause your feet smell like chicken sweat. Keep your money in your shoes and it won't get wet. Girlfriend says, show me what you got, all stuffed down between your toes and your sock. It's wet outside, so I got a plan. Shed that shoe and buy a wedding band. Keep your money in your shoes and it won't get wet. They ain't gonna take it, you can bet, 'cause your feet smell like chicken sweat. Keep your money in your shoes and it won't get wet.
Well, let me ask you guys: when you do stage acts, do you use in-ear monitors, or do you use external monitors on the stage? How do you because you were saying you're used to playing solo, so now you got a band, so you got to be able to hear yourself play. So how does that work for you?
We're all acoustic now. We've been acoustic.
Oh, okay.
Acoustic for what, 20 years?
Sure.
Yeah, probably 20. Yeah, and it's just the regular monitors, but like I said, when you're against the band and the drums and electric guitar, I didn't hear myself for years.
But
really,
I just played still in muscle memory.
When we had the show, when we had the show at Silver Dollar City Amphitheater, the 4,200 seat amphitheater.
Wow.
I had a full complement: keyboards, drums, 2 electric guitars, pedal steel, twin fiddles. I was
another banjo besides me. I was like a
20.
So you had 2 banjos. Wow.
Yeah. So we figured out how to electrify that banjo, and we put a transducer pickup on the head of it.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's how that.
Well, one of the reasons, because I loved Uncle Dave Macon, and he would twirl the banjo. Well, I grew up being a majorette. Bands were big in North Carolina. Yeah. And so we put it in there, and Rodney helped me devise this belt with a hook, because he always played sitting down. Well, in amphitheater, you can't sit down. They can hardly see you anyway.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I learned to twirl it with that amplifier in the back, electrifying it, and I would flip it around and hopefully hit the hook. I almost always did.
ZZ Top did that too, didn't he?
I remember that. I grew up with that. Yeah, absolutely. In the 80s, and Rodney, what is it like, being able to perform with your wife and because I know a lot of musicians, they go on the road and they're away from their families for some time, and to be able to perform with your wife, that's got to be gratifying for you to be able to do that with your mate, to be able to go on stage and perform together. It's got to be like the best thing ever.
Well, I may live to regret this, but it's been the best thing that ever happened to me.
Absolutely.
Now, remember when you said
crazy, because I learned so much from him about the stage and show business and going into a studio, and between him and then I worked for 9 years with Buck Trent from Hee Haw.
Yeah.
And I said, these 2 people taught me so much about entertainment, Rodney and Buck. And when I left Buck to go back on the road after our last child graduated, we went back on the road, and I left Buck, and he says, I'm tired of training women up and they leave me for their husbands.
That's hilarious.
Work all week till it gets a little old. Labor for the man who has all the gold. Home to the kids and love your honey. Pay all the bills when you don't have money. Dance when the fiddle sings an old tune. Dance when the banjo chuckles at the moon. Dance when your feet feel like traveling. Dance till your socks are hot and raveling. For Saturday night, drink a little shine till the world looks bright. Take off your shoes when they feel a little tight. Dance till your socks are hot and raveling. Old Aunt Hattie's sweating in the kitchen. Gets keyed up when the boys start picking. Hitches up her skirt and rolls down her hose. Dances like a duck on a hot wood stove. Dance when the fiddle sings an old tune. Dance when the banjo chuckles at the moon. Dance when your feet feel like traveling. Dance till your socks are hot and raveling.
One of the things that, I told you before we started recording, but a lot of our listeners are independent artists, maybe just out of college or, just getting started on that road. And, I know that their path now is so much different than yours was back then. But, I guess for advice for my listeners, I guess what's the main piece of advice you would give somebody that just starting out in your years of being in the music business? Is there one thing that you could tell somebody just getting started that they should take heed and really try to remember as they go out there and try to make this their livelihood?
As Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know where to start with that. I'm going to do a little seminar down at the Country Music Hall of Fame
in July.
And I don't know where. I've talked to different colleges about this. If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, do something else.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot. It's like crawling over hot coals a lot of times. Of course, even though we got a good start, it was still a constant defending yourself. There would be TV shows where they would want to paint freckles on the dancers and black out their teeth and go down in hay bales, and you would look at them and say, no, thank you. We would refuse.
And sometimes you walked away.
Well, there was a huge megastar. We did his show. We did it twice. The first time we did it, they had us in this ridiculous situation. And I knew the producers. I said, please cut us out of this show.
Yeah.
It was a half-hour show on CBS. Big one.
Wow.
And I won't mention who it was. But I said, get me out of this. This is awful.
Well, just be true to yourself. Rodney got an honorary doctorate from the University of Missouri when he was 80. Mm-hmm. And he got to give the commencement speech. And
That's
he was
amazing.
To be true to, there was like 12,000 people there.
Sure.
To be true to yourself. And when you go out there, don't let someone discourage you and try to change you.
Right.
Yeah, here's a good example. We were 5 major labels out there. And the only label that ever let me do what I want to do was Jack Holton. He's still a friend.
And that's from Elektra, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And, he had the Doors and a lot of people. And a producer will get you, and they'll sign you to a label. We signed for Capitol. We got up and walked out on Capitol. And they didn't know what to do with us.
Yeah.
We knew what to do with us. But they bring in these producers who were just, just weren't our thing. To me, some of them were very shallow.
Sure.
So, don't mean that in a judgmental way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was more of a perceptive evaluation. It wasn't really, but
for the kids, that's like, try not to let that happen.
Well, what happens is they try to change you. They want to make you do the music their way. They want to use you to further themselves by taking what you have and completely. The record companies would put out records that they didn't sign the people for what they did.
Right. Right.
The records that made it were the ones where the guys stood their ground and said, "This is the way I'm going to do it. If you don't like it, we'll go somewhere else."
Right. Exactly.
And that's why when we went with Elektra, did 3 labels, went with Capitol, left and went back to Elektra.
Yeah.
And did the 2 albums that departed from the traditional quite a bit. Yeah. But you have to watch the people who do that. They will use you. At that time, television producers would use you to their advantage. And they would come up and say, this will open new doors for you. But all they were doing was using you the way they thought would help them. Had nothing to do with you. 10 minutes of bad television back then would destroy you.
Well, it could destroy, absolutely. And that I'm glad you said that, because that makes so much of a difference. And speaking of that, nowadays, obviously, with the streaming platforms and social media, indie artists could truly release their own music and not need a label. I know that there's certain aspects of a label that has money to market your music, and because sometimes it takes a little bit of money to market. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that right now that musicians have all the tools they need to get their music out there?
Let me begin by saying I did with 5 major labels. Okay, when you start signing with lesser labels, what happens? It becomes, now it's a vanity thing. Well, I'm on a record label. And there's a problem there. A lot of these young people, which I discovered because Beverly and I just launched our own record company.
Yeah.
It's called Dillard Sound Records.
Dillard Sound your son.
Yeah, the Dillard Song Records. And because what I discovered with these little bitty labels, that you sign with them, they charge the artist way much for their CDs or whatever. Because most artists sell their stuff on the road to make their money. That's
right. Yeah.
But they charge them such an incredible price to do that. The other thing that gets in, you got to be careful, because there is a thing that you put on a master, and it's called the ICRS code. I got it backwards. Yeah, I think
that's how you get paid, right? That's how you get the points. Yeah.
Exchange, which they're beautiful. I'm sorry, but they're really good. I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
But if they change, for instance, we had a master, I won't give names, that a friend of mine produced. It was our record. We released it to them. They changed the codes on the master. So therefore, the money didn't come the way it should.
Oh, okay.
See, and that's what's happening to these young people. They'll sign to think they've got a record deal with us. And all they do is sign with these people and
they basically own them. They basically own. They can't record on their own, right? They have to. They're kind of.
I guess
right.
some people, if you're smart, you don't sign a contract.
Sure.
You don't keep it by per lease or anymore. What I used to do is lease money for a 3-year lease.
Okay.
But if they can do that, if they can put their record out there, the problem with that gets into the young people who are looking at putting out records. If you don't get the PR people to get it out there to people who want to hear it,
yeah,
and you know all about that, you know about the radio people who download, the radio stations download what they want if the first 50 albums come out, and they download what they want to play it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those kind of connections, and what I have found in that, to be very careful when you give your album to some of the downloaders out there that sell your album, and they give you decimal points on it.
Very little.
Writers make no money anymore.
Right.
They're taking total advantage of the writers and artists.
Well, you have to have millions of streams on, I believe, even Spotify to even get any money, or to get anything significant. I mean, you have to have millions of streams, and it's definitely not benefiting the artists at that point. But again, they get their music out there, so maybe you can get endorsements or however that works. But
I mean, Rodney's well established, but a new artist has to get people to hear them in order to get a following and get jobs.
Right.
It's not in that position now. So what we did on our store, we put our own download.
Oh, okay.
Spotify doesn't have much.
So they download, so you see that you benefit from that from your own downloads.
Yes.
So you don't have to go through Spotify or the others.
No, we do a hard copy or download, and with our downloads, you get 2 or 3 downloads plus all of the artwork.
Sure.
And people are liking that, and then it's not cutting the writers.
Yeah.
And the
exactly.
musicians.
You're going right to the source. Absolutely. Yeah. And didn't Andy Griffith have a deal with you guys so you could get paid through ASCAP every time and even now today, right? No?
Absolutely. You're totally correct on that. Here's what happened. He said, now, boys, he said, because they hired us as musicians, not actors.
Yeah. Right.
Because I think we got paid per show at that time. Big man, $300 a piece.
Right. Absolutely.
For us.
It's residuals, and that's one thing that.
Well, no residuals. There was no residuals at that time.
Oh, okay.
Even Maggie, Denver Pyle, Jack Dobson, none of those people had residuals.
Oh, okay.
And y'all not going to make any money with residuals. There wasn't anything residual there.
Sure.
I'm going to get every one of your songs I can from each one of my shows you're on.
Yeah. Wow.
And we had average before they started cutting it up, 4 to 5 songs per episode.
Wow. Okay.
That's through ASCAP, and as you know, that has been paying since the beginning of the new show.
And now look they're still showing the show every day. It's on MeTV every day.
And you know what? Andy could have said, "Well, I want you to do all the PD stuff," and then they would take the publishing.
Right. Yeah.
But we didn't do that. We didn't know it at the time.
Well, he understood how important that is to musicians and the art that they create is important. Yeah.
He loved guitars, and when we did the movie, first thing he did, we were at the studio. He came in and said, "Look what I just bought." There was no metal dobro.
Yeah. Sure.
He was just thinking about using that in the show, and I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Use it in the show." So if you're looking there, it's hanging on the wall, and he pulls it down.
Yeah.
And Ernest T. Kids, it's the pig on the piano. He loved musicians. He would give them the time of day, but a lot of other people he wouldn't.
Yeah.
He was very reclusive when it came to that, from what I understand. But we never got that from him.
Right.
It was he treated it. If we came in off the road on a tour, and we were tired, and we got up the next day, he would give us his dressing room to sleep in.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the Andy I knew. Right.
Yeah, very, very upstanding, and I like to hear that, especially in Hollywood around that time. It's like few and far between to see that type of situation. So I'm glad to hear that. And I read that, and I'm glad you just reiterated that. Before we go, I wanted to ask you about what you're working on right now and some of the music and how our listeners can find you and get some of that music we talked about. So tell us about that.
It's very nice of you to do that for us. I really appreciate it. We've just come out with a new album. All the other ones we've done, Old Road New Again, had the Eagles on it with me and Ricky Skaggs and a bunch of folks. But I didn't put it on there to say, look who I've got. I did it because I respected those people.
And you were friends before they were
well,
big.
and they respect you. I mean, that's...
He was gone before he was ever an Eagle.
Right.
He sent me a tape of some of the other songs he was listening to. In fact, he was my next door neighbor there for a while when I was in college. And
but the one we just did, we were talking about writing the songs that made Charlene cry.
That was written because, and that's the name of the album, it's about all the funny titles that would say, and she would say that makes me cry. Will you love me when I'm old and ugly?
Dirty me, I'm disgusted with myself.
Don't hit your grandma with a great big stick. Tearing up your old clothes for rags. Dance till your socks are hot and rattling.
Put your money in your shoes and it won't get wet.
Now there's one.
I like that one.
There's one on there. He said, well, let's do Slimy River Bottom. And I think Paul said, oh, that makes me cry, but I'll get over it. So we did Slimy River Bottom, and it's not
funny.
It's not funny.
Wow.
If you hear it, we took a chance. We did it. I'll suffer for it.
Yep, me too.
Yes, you will. It deals with gospel, the prosperity gospel.
Okay.
When you follow that, the devil drags you down, down, down to the slimy river bottom.
It talks about, some of the lines are, just because you read about them doesn't mean you know them.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And it has those lines, where we're rebuilding the golden calf.
Prosperity preachers make the devil laugh.
Yeah, that's deep. I love that. That's up my alley. I love that kind of music. I love that kind of messaging.
And we did the funny ones, and then he wrote one, and also our producer Briscoe's Dream,
okay,
and then Slimy River Bottom, and then we had to do There's a Time because people have been asking for us to write these songs for a long time, and everyone wants There's a Time.
Yeah,
but this time Rodney had me sing it, and I did it totally different. I did it singing it to Maggie, to Charlene, because she was a very close friend that we loved so much. And it was, the whole album's a tribute to her, and this song especially. So it's done just with me and a 6-string banjo, very sparsely in the background. Yeah. And I said, I've never sung anything except by myself. That's how I sing by myself. Everything I've ever performed is Yahoo! Dance music, and this felt like being naked emotionally and vocally naked to me. But where his website, our website is rodneydillard.tv, and then you go to store. We've got several of the older CDs on there. The one Wish Life Was Like Mayberry. We have a book, and occasionally more than one book. We're getting ready to put the Dillard songbook back on there. Okay. And of course, this one is the newest one, and boy, it's getting a lot of reaction. Yeah. I mean, people, we sold so many in a pre-sale before we actually got it pressed. Yeah. It was amazing, and we are our own record company. Sometimes people will say or email and go, I haven't gotten my CD. Well, they'd order it the day before, and we're not Amazon. Right.
Yeah. Got to give you a week or two.
I address the envelopes. He signs them, and I take them to.
Hey, I hear you. When somebody buys a T-shirt or a hat, I have to package it up. I'm a one-man show. I do everything myself. My wife calls me. She says she's my producer, and she is. She gives me little, bits and pieces of what I should do. But it's really just us doing the same thing. The same thing. Yeah. I don't have a team.
Well, he had the great idea of starting our own record company. And I have a great deal of work to do now to run the record company. So he called me CEO to make me do it.
So you're the boss. Yeah, you're the CEO, of course.
Now, RodneyDillard.tv. TV doesn't stand for television.
Yeah, I see TV a lot. .com, .net, TV for sure. I like that though. .tv. It sounds great. Before we go, I asked this question of everybody, but I'm going to start with you, Rodney. When it's all said and done, I know you've had a great legacy already in the music business, but when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to walk away with when they think of Rodney Dillard?
Oh, my.
That's a big question.
Oh, doggone it.
This got deep.
Well, a legacy. Well, I want my children to think that I did a good job of raising them. And my grandchildren. I want them to have the value system that Beverly and I both, and I just want them to find Jesus on their own and not listen to anybody. What Dylan said was, don't trust leaders and watch the parking meter.
Yep.
You know, because you put a quarter in the parking meter, and it'll go expired.
Yeah.
And also your musical legacy. I know Rodney has always followed his heart and what he felt was right to do. I mean, adding the orchestra and drums and electric instruments, he was crucified for that. But he did.
And look at it now.
Right.
Influenced some of the biggest names in the business, music business, because of that.
And he wants to give young people a chance.
Yeah, every opportunity I have, I will spend the time with a kid who's really passionate about it and talk to him, not talk over him, not talk at him. And that's what I want the people that I've met and I talk to, because I usually stay after a show and I'll talk. Everybody has a story.
Sure.
And, you know, we're all connected to synergistic spiritual things.
Absolutely.
90% of the world ignores.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
So I want those kids to remember, it's like Earl Scruggs did to my brother-in-law when we knocked on his door when we were kids, and he invited us in and put those tuners on my brother's banjo. You know, he was a big guy. Well, we ended up later becoming friends, and he influenced what we did a lot.
Yeah.
And we toured together, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, every kid who comes up and talks to me, I discern that it's important that God gives me the right things to say to that child that he will remember when he's 40.
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't want to say anything stupid to anybody, but I do. It's epic.
You might think that, but it's not. Everything is important. I think anything that somebody has to say is coming from the right place. And, you know, but I appreciate everything you've done in the music business. And even just talking to you before we started recording, I could just tell you and Beverly are just amazing people. And again, just such an honor. And, you know, Beverly, I'd like to hear what your legacy is. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, my goodness. I think I'm sort of like Rodney. I guess I just want it to be that I was always available to help, because that's where my heart was, to be a child psychologist.
Yeah.
And I've done that since I don't work. Our daughter used to bring in, when she was in high school, we had a late child. I was 40 and he was almost 50. And she'd tell them when they had problems, well, come with me, come home with me. You can talk to my mom. She's a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and she's not allowed to tell. So I would sit for hours. I heard a lot of things I wish I hadn't heard sometimes.
Sure.
I did everything I could to help these kids so they wouldn't go the wrong way.
Right.
I think, you know, I hope people have found fun, because when I played the World's Fair, this guy from New York came up and he said, "Lady, I don't know anything about banjo playing or clogging, but you're one of the best darn comedians I've ever heard." So I want to have been enjoyed, and I want to have helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, both of you have already left a great legacy, and I'm so honored to have you both on the show. And you know, it's really, I appreciate the honor of your time, and you know, I can't wait again to get this music and to really dig into you know, because I already know the Dillards the Darlings, I should say the Darlings, the Dillards from the Andy Griffith Show, but you know, now it's just opened up a whole new world for me. You know, getting to talk to you both and to kind of see what's going on now in your lives, and so it's really been an honor for me. And thank you for being on the show. And you're always welcome back. Would love to have you back, and even if you're not promoting anything, just to have you on to chat Yeah, it's just been, like I said, a great show, and I can't thank you both enough for being on my show today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I want to tell your young people who are interviewed, by never interrupt your host like I do.
You weren't interrupting. You're totally fine.
He's afraid he's going to forget.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both again.
There is a time for love and laughter. The days will pass like summer storms. The winter winds will follow after. But there is love, and love is warm. There is a time for us to wonder, when time is young and so are we. The woods are green over yonder. The path is new, the world is free. There is a time when leaves are falling, the woods are gray, the paths are old, the snow